Thank
you for coming back to the fourth session of the public hearing today. We have Mr. Wong Kam Singh, Secretary, Mr. Chan, the Director, Mr. Au and Dr. Chen, Assistant Directors of Environmental Protection. I'd like to welcome residents, scholars, and relevant sectors for coming here. Now, first of all, the earpiece is here. Channel 1, Channel 0 is for 4, Channel 1 Cantonese, and Channel 2 English. That's for simultaneous interpretation service.
Residents and representatives from NGO and from the academics and the business sector. Welcome to this meeting to share with us the good experiences and the insight of the issue. Please note that there is an earpiece to every booth. You could take on the earpiece and then enjoy our simultaneous interpretation services. For Channel 0, it is floor sound. For the Cantonese, please tune to Channel 1. For Channel 2, please tune to English. And from now on, I will speak in Cantonese.
The time, speaking time limit is 3 minutes. My apology, because there are so many deputations here wishing to speak. And when the 3 minutes are up, there will be a bell to remind you that time is up. So please then stop speaking. Because if you speak beyond your time limit, that means others following you will have less time to speak. And please note that your speeches are not covered by the Legislative Council Powers and Privileges Ordinance. There is also notes on security measures for those attending the meetings of LegCo. That notes have been attached to the letter to you. There is also a copy now tabled in each seat. As for those in the public gallery, if you wish, you could ask the security guards for the same notes. First, now we go to the first speaker, Mr. Jane HOUNG from the Cheung Development Association. Good afternoon. The incineration facilities. I read from newspaper that the government plans to build a heated swimming pool in Chau as compensation. But our association does not think that will work. In other countries, incinerators are built in urban areas. It's easy for residents to walk to these facilities to use them. But then Chau and Chau are connected only by ferry services. It's very inconvenient. It's a waste of time to get there. For old people and students, it's actually dangerous for them to go on and off the kai tows, the local forms of ferry. So no one would be interested in using that facilities. So instead of building the heated pool in Chau, you should build it in Chau, next to the Wai Shi Hall Secondary School. And then you could build a town hall there, actually. Now that site is large enough for five aside a soccer pitch and a heated swimming pool. It will be convenient for the schools nearby, and the usage will be much higher than if the facilities are built in Chau. And also the government has to deal with the ferry service issue. There is inadequate ferry services for Chau. Public hygiene is deteriorating, and there is a serious inadequacies in emergency services. Now we've kept writing to different government departments, but they just turn a deaf ear to our demands. And there are also a lot of visitors coming to Chau, and that causes conflict between local residents and visitors. Now the government is pressing ahead with the incinerator project because it doesn't care about the needs of residents. So we express strong dissatisfaction with the government. And if you to build the facilities there, you should give ongoing compensation to Chau residents. You should subsidize a expensive ferry fare as well.
On the shouting, please.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Dutch Chamber of Commerce, we're very pleased to be able to submit our views. As long-term residents of Hong Kong, we welcome the efforts by the government to launch campaigns to encourage behavioral change, such as the Food Wise campaign. And we would support further efforts to stimulate the Hong Kong community to reduce at source, reuse, cycle, and rethink. We should be committed to finding the most effective solution for dealing with our MSW in ways that limit and reduce environmental and human impact. This is something that I think everyone agrees with, and I've gone through most of the pieces. Recycling is a vital part of a sustainable waste solution because it has the potential to significantly reduce the quantity of waste. However, as we know, not all waste is recyclable. Waste-to-energy facilities, WTE, complement these recycling efforts by converting non-recyclable waste into energy. Recycling and WTE are complementary to achieve lower landfill rates. The term incineration, which is often erroneously applied to WTE and adds to the debate but confuses it, is an uncontrolled combustion process without energy recovery. Modern WTE facilities are in no way similar to incinerators of the past. Using MSW as the primary fuel source, WTE facilities recover electricity for the communities in which they operate. The facilities use state-of-the-art pollution and odor control equipment to scrub emissions, preventing them from releasing into our environment. Hong Kong has a large and troubling waste load, as we all know. Currently, Hong Kong's recycling rate of domestic use MSW is about 23%, and its landfill rate is 52%, compared to a recycling rate of almost 60% and landfill of 2% in the Netherlands. It's interesting to note that both the Netherlands and Hong Kong suffer from a lack of space, as well as a very vocal population. The Netherlands is happy to share its knowledge, experience, and results to the benefit of the citizens of Hong Kong. We respectfully recommend you to consider the following proposal. Small landfill extensions at SENT, NENT, and WNT, as the small extensions would solve the immediate mounting waste disposal issues. But at the same time, simultaneously, build WTE facilities at the same landfill sites, SENT, NENT, and WNT. The construction of WTE facilities at the above-mentioned three sites would, in our humble opinion, have the following benefits for the community. A, the existing landfills already have the infrastructure in place for transporting the waste. 3, implementation.
Thank you, Mr. Shouting. The time's up. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
KWOK Man-yi 女士。
主席、各位議員。
Next, Ms. Kwok. Madam Chair, members. We're now at a critical stage of dealing with waste. We can't afford delays anymore. In Hong Kong, we face this plight. The free landfills are soon to be exhausted. And when the landfills are exhausted, it seems that there is no fallback option at all for Hong Kong to deal with the 17,000 tons of waste generated by the people of Hong Kong every day. Now, Hong Kong is an international financial center. How come all along we have never taken the waste disposal issue seriously? We need a comprehensive waste management strategy. Waste reduction, recycling, reuse, incineration, landfill. We need a multi-pronged approach. We need to change the behavior of the people about disposal of waste. At the same time, we need facilities that could handle large quantity of waste. We need all of them. They're all essential. But of course, we cannot change people's behavior overnight. We just need to look at Taiwan, our neighbor. In 2011, there's an average of 0.47 kilograms of waste disposed per capita every day in Taiwan. Ours is 3 times that. Now, Taiwan is able to get where it is after 10 years of effort in public education and promotion. In Hong Kong, we haven't even started for a year. You look at the figures provided by the government. Next year, our landfills will start to be exhausted one by one. If we do not have new waste management facilities or expanded waste management facilities, where do we dump our waste? If Hong Kong would not make a decision now, we will just pay a higher cost as the community as a whole, and our living standard will deteriorate, and the cost of building facilities will only go up. There's a lot of misunderstanding and misperception in the community. Unfortunately, in the past 10 years, we've wasted time arguing and hesitating. But in other countries, they spent 10 years in taking action, in accruing experience, and they have used incineration to replace landfill facilities. In Taiwan, there are 24 incinerators, China 138, Japan 1,243 incinerators they have. So incineration is a well-established technology. It could turn waste into energy. It provides cheap energy to local communities. I understand members have visited many places overseas. I hope you will vote properly for the future of Hong Kong. Thank you.
Next, Dr. Otto Poon. Thank you, Chairman. I agree with the two previous deputations. They have made most of my points. I would like to raise 1 to 2 points for you, Chairman, and members. Taiwan has spent 10 years to reduce the per capita waste from 1.4 kg to 0.4. Korea has taken 20 years to reduce waste from 0.8 kg per day to 0.4 kilogram per day. So all this needs education and change of habit. In these two places, they have taken 10 years. The political environment in Hong Kong is more rebellious. This is the unique characteristic of Hong Kong people. Whenever there is a government policy, it takes a long time to go through this council. It's like making snail movement. So if we are to reduce from 1.6 kilogram to 0.4 kilogram, it will take us more than 10 years. Under these circumstances, it is urgent for us to expand the landfills. At the same time, we have to build an incinerator IWOWF as soon as possible. Last year, on the 27th of May, 10 years ago, we talked about the same thing. Now almost 300 days have gone. Every day, there is 10,000 tons of waste. Since last time when I was here till now, there's an additional 3 million tons of solid waste. Such amount of waste can fill up the whole electrical building and the administrative building. Hong Kong is too slow in working. I support the expansion of the existing 3 landfills. At the same time, we need to expedite our work to build the IWMF Integrated Waste Management Facility. Thank you, Chairman. Next, Mrs. Jane HOUNG.
Man's brief existence on this earth, the beauty of the natural environment has inspired and continues to inspire creative people from all walks of life. Writers, artists, philosophers, musicians, even businessmen and politicians. Well, some. Here's the romantic English poet Keats. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. And Beethoven. How happy I am to wander among bushes and herbs, under trees and over rocks. Nature is a glorious school for the heart. Buddhist quotes abound, and here's Lao Tzu from the Taoist Bible, Tao Te Ching. Great indeed is the sublimity of nature to which we owe our beginnings. And when people of the world all know beauty as beauty, there arises the recognition of ugliness. And here's Mao Zedong. Let 100 flowers bloom. Seriously, here's my point. Why is the EPD planning to build a gigantic incinerator in South Lantau, one of the few remaining beauty spots of Hong Kong? an area earmarked by the government, and I quote, for natural conservation and sustainable recreational uses. How many of you have walked along Changsha Beach, the longest stretch of white sand in Hong Kong? Our best, according to the Hong Kong Tourism Board website. I do not ask this as a rhetorical question, hands up, because if you have, I bet you won't be voting for a monstrous incinerator that will tower so high and spew so foul that the enjoyment of all outdoor activities for miles around, hiking, swimming, boating, biking, barbecuing, dancing, romancing, will be ruined forever. The Economist Intelligence Unit has recently declared Hong Kong as the most livable city in the world. Why? Quote, Hong Kong is a very compact city, but there is a dense network of green spaces. I wonder what the Economist Intelligence Unit would think of the EPD's plans for Chau. Ladies and gentlemen, I personally acknowledge the urgent need for incineration in this wasteful, overpopulated corner of China. But may I ask you to reconsider the location? Here's a definition of beauty: the perceptual experience of pleasure or satisfaction. Here's another, a feeling of balance and harmony with nature. As Hong Kong continues to get gobbled up by her motherland in every sense of the verb, how about we set an example to the PRC about one aspect of good governance, protection of the environment? Chau, it's a beautiful island overlooking probably the finest beach in the whole of China, surrounded by glorious mountains, fringed by the South China Sea. Preserve its ecology, protect our natural environment, its extraordinary beauty, for your own futility, creativity,
thank you for sharing
health
with
and
us
happiness.
The beautiful life by John Keats. 俊和建築工程有限公司
Next, Mr. Man from Chunwo Construction and Engineering Company Limited. Thank you. We support the Bureau's 3+1 proposal. According to the Environment Bureau's Hong Kong Waste Management and Disposal statistics, every day we have 10,000 tons of solid waste. And for the 3 existing landfills, they will be saturated by 2019, the latest. We believe that expansion of the landfills and the building of new waste management facilities are very urgent. The government's proposal is to expand the existing landfill area so that the 3 landfills can continue to provide limited landfilling space for the waste generated by Hong Kong people every day. From this perspective, if we are to properly deal with Hong Kong's waste, incineration is the best choice. We have been in the infrastructure industry for 45 years in the past, and now we have taken part in many environmental facility projects. For example, the building of ecological toilet, chemical waste handling station, and so on. And many multinational companies are here in Hong Kong. They have introduced some incinerator contractors. They grasp the most advanced technology globally. We believe that we can introduce advanced and environmental friendly technologies to help Hong Kong to handle the waste problem. In recent years, construction cost is rising rapidly. If we continue to procrastinate, if we don't implement the 3+1 approach, then I'm afraid that apart from the possibility of being surrounded by waste, we may have to pay huge construction expenses. Our company has taken part in the building of railway buildings and waterworks and so on. Many of them are closely related to people's livelihood and community development. So we grow together with Hong Kong. In the past, we rely on Hong Kong people's understanding, trust, and tolerance to be able to complete many infrastructural projects. Today, we hope that the Hong Kong public and councillors can continue your trust in us, and let's solve the problems in front of us together and support the government's 3+1 proposal. Thank you. Next, Mr. Victor Lee, Hong Kong Waste Management Association.
The Hong Kong Waste Management Association has been witnessing the evolution, needs and challenges of waste management issues in Hong Kong. And there have been so many extensive rounds of opinion gatherings, expression of interest, public forums, and consultations among our various stakeholders. Now, and waste to energy has been named one of the approach long ago. But learning from the operating experience from countries in Japan, Korea, Singapore, and a lot of European countries, we understand that effective waste management, it is essential to have a combination of waste-to-energy technology with continuing landfill capacity at downstream, together with specialized organics waste management. And of course, it should not need to be mentioned that the approach to resource recycling serves as the backbone of the sustainable society. We understand the general public is very skeptical about the health and safety issues of the WTE, as well as we preferred a zero landfill approach. But from the professional angle of a learned society, as well as proven operating experience from other countries, we are convinced that these concerns have already been well taken care of by technological advancement, and Hong Kong would generally have the capacity to ensure the highest operating standards for the facilities. And we cannot do without having the landfills being the part of the solutions with the waste to energy or any other thermal treatment technologies. With the proposed IWMF Phase 1 only targeting 3,000 tons of MFW every day, we still have an imminent need to extend our three existing landfills, which can be monitored and managed on a performance basis. The waste charging scheme recently proposed by the government can play a determined and effective role in encourage our citizens to reduce, reuse, and recycle. Another point to stress is the extensive environmental education for the whole Hong Kong community. It's one of the most critical parts for the success of a sustainable environment. Okay? Compared with other world-class cities, Hong Kong is really lagging behind in implementing a basket of solutions to tackle the waste management issues holistically. Can we really wait any longer? Now, it is certainly the time to proceed with the 3+1 option, while implementing the other initiatives set out in the government blueprints in parallel. The Hong Kong Waste Management Association strongly supports the government's blueprint and anticipates helping Hong Kong to walk the talk. Thank you.
跟住呢係環保協進會鄭俊毅先生，請。
各位主席、議員、局長好。咁啱局長喺上一節提到啦，咁其實回收率咧，其實達到40-50% 已經好叻㗎啦。咁其實咧，佢無論去到幾多咧，都一定會有其他嘅廢物剩翻喺度，好似建築廢物咁樣。咁但係呢個係咪可以俾我哋一直作為無限？But
can this be an excuse to indefinitely expand the landfills, as the Secretary said, in other countries, even though many incinerators have been built, they still have landfills to make use of? Can we do the same as in other countries in Hong Kong? I have a lot of doubts, because in Hong Kong, population is huge and land is limited. We have much fewer land resources. If we continue to use landfills to supplement other facilities, this is not really feasible in Hong Kong. In the coming 10 years, landfills will be saturated gradually. Should the landfills be expanded? No, it seems that there is no choice for us. I do think that they have to be expanded, otherwise we'll be surrounded by waste. But we should pay attention to the following points. In the future, will the government be determined to do other things so that we won't need to rely on landfills? The government is now working on waste reduction at source, food waste and recycling. Now, let's take the recycling industry as an example. Last year, when the companies stopped recycling plastics, then there is no solution. All the plastics will have to be dumped at landfills. Is Hong Kong very determined about the recycling industry? And what is the extent of development of that industry? The answer is clear. Many people talked about waste reduction at source, and it will take at least 10 years. So we cannot only rely on these methods. In that case, even 1 million landfills won't be enough. So I hope the government can have other solutions. The government should be determined to do a better job and to use other ways to change the current condition. We should not always rely on landfills. Thank you, Mr. Chang. Next, Ms. Grace Chang, Lohas Cheung Chau Environmental Education Center. Chairman, members, Secretary, good afternoon. We have a center in Cheung Chau. As Mr. Zhang said, last year, we have been recycling plastics, but when that Lok Leng movement started, there was no place for us to recycle, and there is heavy transportation expenses burden. There's no supporting facility from the government. The government promotes waste reduction at source, but how can you help the recyclers and also green groups? I think we should think about this. Besides, about incinerators, we are subject to most impact. We are in Cheung Chau. I am a Cheung Chau resident. I do not object to the building of incinerator just because I am living in Cheung Chau. It is a fact that incinerator must be built. Without incinerator, it is not possible to continue to expand our landfills. When incinerator is built, should we only consider places with small population? Should we also consider transportation cost, construction cost, construction duration, and so on? In KWOK, if incinerator is built, I think it is even more costly and time-consuming than building incinerator in other places. When we expand our landfills and when we are to build the incinerator, well, this is quite urgent. How can we achieve the target in the most effective way? I think the EPD officials should consider this. Can we offer some help to recycling companies and green groups so that they have more supporting facilities? Thank you. Next, Mr. To Cho-ki from DAB. Chairman, members, good morning. Good afternoon. Young DAB is of the view that the 3 landfills in Hong Kong are about to be saturated. This is an objective fact. No one can negate it. If we do nothing now, as said just now, the result will be definitely that we'll be surrounded by waste. No one can face up to this result. No one can tolerate this. In Hong Kong, there is a lack of long-term, well-planned waste management policy. The government should first promote the environmental protection policy about recycling. Everybody agrees to it. But no matter how much recycling you're doing, there will definitely be waste. And even with incineration, there will be ash. So no matter how high the recycling rate is, you need to expand the landfills. Now, you do not have enough time to build the incinerator. In the long run, the landfills must be expanded. But how much should the landfills be expanded? That's another thing. It doesn't mean that the government should just do it without considering other things. You have to take into consideration residents in Cheung Kwan O and Tuen Mun. Well, you have to take into consideration these people's feelings because the obnoxious facilities will be around them. So perhaps you need to offer some compensation to these residents in terms of subsidies. The Hong Kong government's policies must be rational. And people should not just blindly object to the proposal. Only then will we see long-term good for Hong Kong. Politicians and local residents have to understand that Hong Kong needs a waste management policy in the long run, and these obnoxious facilities must be built at a certain place. We cannot object blindly, but in the process, the government must take into consideration local residents' views. Next, Mr. Man-yi. Mr. Wong, Chairman, members, good afternoon. I am a locally born New Territories resident. I am the village rep of Santin. My name is Men Kwai Kei. In the past, the government has been expanding the landfills many times. The original environment of the new territories has been damaged. This is disappointing. And I feel angry and sad. The Maipo Natural Wetland Reserve is being internationally recognized. It is an important part of the rear garden of Hong Kong. The government said that the environment must be protected, but all the waste is still being dumped at landfills or incinerators. They haven't thought of how to dispose of the waste in a better way. Mr. Wong, Chairman, you have to understand that landfills damage the environment of the new territories. At the same time, the sewage will flow to Deep Bay, affecting the Maipo Natural Reserve. In September last year, there are newspaper reports about the leakage of sewage, but then the EPD said that that was not the case. So the newspaper said yes, the government said no. So who should I believe in? At the same time, every year, there are more than 100,000 birds flying to Hong Kong, to Maipo Natural Reserve, to spend the winter. With such sewage and with such environment, will the birds like to come to Hong Kong in the future?
At the same time, sewage and landfills are damaging our environment. They're also affecting Maipo village. In terms of the natural reserve, so I strongly object to the landfill proposals. At the same time, the government has been saying that they have very good technologies for the landfill expansion. But I have heard that recently that there are many groups who have paid for trips to Europe to understand technologies adopted elsewhere, such as plasma gasification. They do bring back very concrete materials. Next, Mr. Man Kai Kwong. Hello, I'm a resident of Yin Long. I like to cycle. Sometimes I will use Castle Peak Road, and I go by the garbage collection point. And there is garbage everywhere, even outside of the bins. For example, boxes of glass bottles, used tires, lots of timber waste and construction waste. Mr. Wong, I would like to tell you this is the situation, and you need to see how you can resolve this. I think inside the bins, we're talking about food waste or domestic waste. But what I would like to discuss is the glass bottles outside of the bins. Every year, 100,000 tons of such waste is disposed of at the landfills. So per day, we're talking about 273 such glass bottles. And throughout the year, we're talking about tens of thousands of such glass bottles. In 1998, there was this framework plan to reduce waste. And then in 2005, the former Secretary Dr. Liao proposed this MSW framework. And then Mr. Wong assumed his position between 2013 and a later year. They launched this action plan. We keep talking about reduction at source, reuse, and then treatment towards the end, and also disposing at landfills and also construction of incinerator. I agree that we need to deal with waste. The problem is, however, waste collected at garbage sites will be transported to the landfills. What about the glass bottles? If you look at Taiwan's practice, in Hsinchu City, there's this guy called Qi. He recycles 70% of the glass bottles. We're talking about capacity of 200,000 tons per day. 500 kilograms will be used for his artwork, and the remaining waste will be given to recyclers for reuse. So how come other people can do it, but we cannot? We are talking about billions of such glass bottles, which is a huge amount. Mr. Man Chung-hing. Thank you, Madam Chair. I am a village representative. I do not support the 3+1 proposal. In the UK and Netherlands, we have actually been invited to those places to make some exchanges. While there is a lot of controversy in Hong Kong, the European technologies are more advanced. So we went there to learn from their experience. If you have gone to a visit this month, then I can tell you 6 months before you, we have already looked into why they are using more advanced technologies than Hong Kong. Now that you have gone to Europe, you know all the upside of using the incinerator. It seems to resolve everything surrounding the waste problem. Can we just simply copy and paste the European example? If we follow them blindly, we will be surrounded by waste. When it comes to the incinerators, they work in Europe because they are drier and they have very good selection process or separation process. If you look at the Hong Kong situation, we are just starting with the handling of food waste. If you want to incinerate the food waste up to 90%, the level of efficiency will lag behind compared to Europe. EPD always says that Sweden is a very good example because they rely on incineration. I would like to ask you then, we all know after incineration there will be ashes. What will happen to the ashes in Sweden? They are transported to Norway. If the ashes can be reused, why doesn't Sweden use the ashes themselves? Toxic ashes are transported to Norway. What about our ashes? Where can we transport our ashes to? In Europe, they already use plasma gasification technology. UK is also using this. It will not lead to toxic ashes or gases. I don't understand why the government would not consider this option. Why do you have to stick to the incinerator? Next, from the Conservancy Association, Mr. Wong Chi-king. We all want to reduce waste and turn Hong Kong into a better city. After so many terms of administrations, after waiting for more than 2 decades, I don't think it is going to happen anytime soon. Yes, incineration and using the landfills may not be the best way forward, but they are the best option we have at hand. The Conservancy Association does not want the government to be half-hearted in its efforts in terms of waste reduction. We need to see better measures proposed in terms of reduction and recycling before we can support the incineration proposal. In terms of reduction, the government must launch a charging scheme according to the quantity reduced. By 2015, we need to implement all MSW charging scheme according to the quantity, subject to regular review. Secondly, we need to set a more solid timetable for producers' pay charging scheme and legislative work should be completed between 2015 and 2017. There should be consultation and legislative work for all packaged drinks and glass bottles. The government also needs to revise further the waste-related charging schemes. All waste collection points should be turned into community recycling centers as well. Other than the recycling fund, the government should establish long-term policies to support the recycling industry and prioritize the handling of locally produced waste. The Bureau should ensure that there is legislation guiding the work in relation to separation and also recycling. The government should rely on the most viable technology available and tell us the pros and cons of different technologies so that we can make informed decisions. In terms of compensation for our natural reserves, we need to move ahead ASAP. Energy that's been produced from waste should be turned into production of electricity. By 2020, we have to conduct review on a regular basis. We need to publicize all the results of different studies, expand the landfills by phases. Fourthly, the government needs to improve the trip ticket system and use online real-time barcode system to ensure that the waste. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wong. Mrs. Leung. Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I'm a resident of Lotus Park. I've been living there for nearly 5 years. The landfill is the biggest problem. It directly affects our health. We see other residents moving away one by one, perhaps because some nose allergies and skin problems emerge on the children after they have moved here. Other people cannot stand the odor, and others have been protesting for a long time and they are very tired. And some other residents have been living here for 3 years. They cannot stand it anymore and they're planning to move away. I urge you to listen to us. We do not want to see any garbage collecting vehicles going through our area and tell us when you're going to close down the TKO landfill. From New Democrats, Mr. Fintis Lau. We strongly object the expansion plan for the SANT landfill. It is too closely located to the residents, just like Mrs. Leung has said. Mr. Wong, when are you going to visit Mrs. Leung in her flat to understand the disturbance? The government talk about measures to alleviate the problem. For example, close all the waste vehicles, but we have to wait for the completion of improvement facilities, and meanwhile there is no improvement. New Democrats believes that such planning is very poorly done. As for the incinerator, I think that the government needs to first resolve other problems. We need to assess the health impacts on the local residents and offer compensation, so on and so forth. Mr. C.Y. Leung said previously that there's no need for an incinerator in Hong Kong. And after he became our CE, he shelved the incinerator plan. Now he needs to explain why all of a sudden we need an incinerator. Perhaps he needs to offer his apology for his mistakes made and be politically accountable. We should not over-rely on treatment facilities toward the end of the chain in handling waste. We need to rationalize the whole flow of procedures. For example, collection is done by FHD, but recycling is done by EPD under the DEB, and the two bureaus cannot coordinate. Many people have already criticized that. There should be a dedicated task force involving different bureaus and departments, or set up a recycling bureau to really focus on reduction at source and other recycling matters. The 1 billion recycling fund can support the setting up of this recycling bureau. We need to look into the values of different materials, tires and glass. We should not allow fluctuations of the value in the market. The government can also work with junk collectors or community groups to deal with different levels of the recycling chain. We also need to expand our manufacturing sector so that we can reuse more materials domestically. Otherwise, the government is paying for recycling and the resources of the valuable materials are going elsewhere. We have to centralize all the measures, and then we can resolve this bottleneck. Green recycling, Mr. Wong Choming. We always talk about waste. Why is it considered waste? The kind of waste we have today, actually we can do separation, and some of it is actually resources. 80% of the waste dumped at the landfills can be reused in one way or another. How much waste should be dumped at the landfills and then be covered? Actually, if you sort the waste, you will realize that it is resources, it is money we are dumping at the landfills. We are dumping at least $5 million at our landfills every day, according to my rough calculation. Someone talked about the campaign. Plastic materials cannot go into the mainland. Why don't we recycle the materials? If you want to set up a plant, you need to go through many procedures. It takes 2 to 3 years before you can actually handle the matter. So the campaign is very nearsighted. We are dumping everything at the landfills. If we have this site for the storage of the plastics, it will turn things around. Plastics are the least polluting and damaging to our environment. In the past, according to waste reduction policies, things were poorly done. For example, reduction at source in people's homes. Why don't we push it further? Many things have been thrown away, or they are being reused. Perhaps when they are designed, when people decide what materials to use, if we become more aware, we would know that it is not waste, it is resources we're talking about. We just need to pile them up and they turn into money. It is just like a plastic bag. Let's say 100 kilogram is not much money. But if it is 1 million tons or 100 tons, we're talking about something very different. If we don't deal with the materials, the value will of course decline. Degradable plastic bags create great threats to our society. I hope that the government will impose some sort of limitations. Next, Ms. Leonie Chan.
Landfill extension projects and integrated waste treatment management facilities projects are feasible. Start from the year 2015, the 3 major operating landfill sites will be full one by one. To solve the problem by avoiding the landfill sites to get full through reduced waste at source is proposed in society. However, it can only slow down the rate of saturation of landfill sites, but not answering the question, that is, where should our future waste go to? I think incinerators and integrated waste treatment management facilities can be a solution. As far as sustainability is concerned, these projects are promising. The technologies of incinerator are mature, that the cost is lower than before. Environmentally speaking, advanced technologies used in designs and operations of incinerators greatly reduce the environmental impacts. Take Japan as an example. The filtering technologies allow pollutants to be released to air as H2O and CO2 particles that are not harmful to the environment. But I am skeptical of the proposed locations of these projects, as some of them are preserved area in our country park. I'm afraid it could become an example for developers to invade our preserved area. Also, food waste treatment is also an essential part in waste treatment in future. It is possible to be further utilized as power generation. I see no point in stopping our society's steps forward and adopt new technologies for these projects. Thank you.
多謝你，跟住。
Thank you. Next, Mr. Leung Kin-young from Hong Kong Construction Association Young Members Society. Good afternoon. It is always difficult to achieve all our targets satisfactorily. We may have extension of the landfills, but they will be exhausted eventually. We support the 3+1 proposal. We should always focus on the facts. We have visited the incinerating plant in Tokyo. It is being operated very smoothly, and nearby people also benefit from the cheap power generated by the plant. On the contrary, Hong Kong is going nowhere. So one day we will be surrounded by waste, and our image will be damaged. The 3+1 proposal is not just about incineration, it is about greening and education and creating opportunities for different industries. So this is not a monster. The incinerator or landfills are both needed by the community. Some people believe that the SENT landfill extension plan will bring further disturbances and nuisance such as odor to the nearby residents. If you only allow facilities that will not lead to bad odor, and also cut by half the trips made by garbage collection vehicles, construction waste can be reused for the artificial island, then it is a win-win-win situation. If in the community there is this obnoxious facility, but in return we have more greening, more ancillary facilities with a guarantee offered by the EPD. Again, we cannot make everyone happy, but by losing some, you also gain more. So the 3+1 proposal is necessary. So we cast a vote to support this proposal. Ms. Shamkai.
Tokyo, Seoul City, Taipei City all have less waste generation per capita when comparing to Hong Kong. Hong Kong should take simultaneous action to reduce the waste. Southeast New Territories landfill, Northeast New Territories landfill, and West New Territories landfill will all be full on or before 2019. It's impossible to have new landfill sites being built before 2019 to meet the demand of waste disposal. Landfills extension seems to be a quicker solution to this problem. Landfill handling technology, especially in the aspects of engineering, has been achieved to a high standard, and therefore with appropriate control and regulation like restricting the smelly construction waste to be disposed in landfill extension part, which is nearer to the citizens, can help to strike a balance between the imagined need of waste disposal and social concerns. And of course, it's impossible for Hong Kong to rely much on landfill for handling waste in the long run, and the impossibility is shown by our current situation. Therefore, other means of waste management must be carried together with the extensions of landfills, like the integrated waste management facilities, which convert waste to energy, and these not only reduce waste for them, but also can sustain the way of waste disposal by utilizing them as energy. Other community actions like food waste must be promoted strongly, as the food waste disposal situation in Hong Kong is quite severe, and reductions on food waste is the best way to food waste treatment. However, I think education is also needed to teach the citizens on recycling. It seems that people don't know much about the materials that can be recycled, and this makes the effects of recycling not that obvious. More instruction should be given on the aspects of recycling. Thank you, Chairman.
多謝你，跟住係方希俊先生。
Thank you, Mr. Fong Hei-chun. While Hong Kong is compact and densely populated, how do we make the most of our scarce land resources? That's something we should ponder over. And right now, we deal with waste mostly by dumping them in landfills, but then the 3 landfills will be exhausted in the next few years. There is a need for alternative waste disposal approaches. Now, the 3 landfill, 1 incinerator approach is a good one. Now, our landfills are about to be exhausted. If we build an incinerator, then we don't need to send waste to the landfill. Instead, waste could be combusted, and then the heat released could be turned into energy. The Environment Bureau has done an estimate that enough electricity could be generated for 100,000 households per year from the incinerator. Now, of course, that means we make the most of waste, turn them into energy, but also there's no need to rely so heavily on our local electricity supply network. And also, the government has proposed waste reduction at source and sorting of waste. Now, if residents could help to sort waste that's combustible and that's not, and then we will have a multi-pronged approach to deal with the long-term waste problem. And our neighbors like Taiwan, Singapore, Japan, they have long been using incineration as mainstream means to deal with waste. More than half of the municipal solid waste is incinerated. And during the colonial days, we had an incinerator. Why was the incinerator closed at the time? Because at the time, as the population grew, people became more concerned about air quality. But now, incineration technology has become much more advanced. For the modern incinerators, they're not like the old ones. They do not emit a large quantity of pollution during incineration. So that's why incinerator is worthy of consideration.
Mr. Merrin Pierce, please.
Thank you for the opportunity. The 5 following questions were presented to all panel members prior to the meeting on the 24th of February. LIM have not received formal answers to these questions, so we strongly believe that these fundamental issues must be responded to. The Environmental Affairs panel members and ideally Hong Kong public should be given the answers. The issues are that the Bureau has admitted that their statistics for recycling are false and misleading, and that previous claims as much as 52% of Hong Kong's waste is recycled is shown to be incorrect. So how can EPD use the blueprint and this blueprint be trusted when it is based on such misleading and false statistics? Why has there been no public review or amendment of the blueprint based on this new recycling rate information? LIM estimates that the true recycling percentage could be less than 10%. So what are our options? Why is EPD ignoring the strong demand from the public that you see at the 3-colour bins to actually recycle more waste? Why have they not taken much greater efforts at all levels to produce the most basic waste management and resource recovery infrastructure? EPD's strategy for removing the problem of waste is based on sending unsorted waste to landfill. There is no immediate steps between collection and dumping or burning. If the IMF proposal is implemented, there will be no incentive for the public to recycle or recover any waste if it can all be dumped into an incinerator and burned. There is not a strategy of a responsible government. This is not a responsible government strategy. Why does the blueprint contain no credible plans for sorting of waste to avoid the need for it to go to landfill or incineration? How can a huge economic and environmental cost of integrated waste management facility be justified for such a small gain, which could be achieved at less social, environmental and financial cost through improving waste reduction and recycling? Moving grade incineration only achieves a 70% reduction in the amount of waste that is burned, and the process converts some of the waste into poisonous gases that have to be handled very carefully, and we are concerned about that process of handling them. Why does the Bureau continue to resist other rapidly emerging technologies in the face of growing evidence that these technologies are gaining acceptance around the world and operated at a regional scale? They are more than sufficient to handle the waste that would be left over after sorting facilities were implemented. So what are the next phases planned by the Environment Bureau, and when will the details be made public? As this phase 1 only deals poorly with basically 1/3 of the current municipal solid waste volume. So when will we know the whole picture, and why would we be making a decision at this stage without knowing the full cost implications, both environmental, social and financial? Thank you.
Thank you.
Waste Management Action Group, please.
Thank you. Our written submission is paper 24. The group is concerned that the administration's proposal is inadequate, will be too little too late, and relies on a big incinerator, which is not a solution to the waste problems. The administration's plan, call it Plan A, will not work. Therefore, Plan B, based on large capacity waste sorting facilities, is proposed and is explained in the submission. The group cannot understand why there is no industrial scale sorting and recycling in the blueprint. This is used extensively elsewhere in the world. A holistic approach is necessary. Industrial scale sorting machines can handle up to 700 tonnes per day of MSW and reduce it by 80%. 5 of these machines will handle the same amount of waste as a proposed incinerator. It is simple technology and has no significant environmental concerns. The waste is delivered to one end and a series of conveyor belts moves it through the sorting stations, which mechanically or manually remove recyclable materials and creates jobs directly and in the recycling industry. There's no guarantee that the government's proposals for waste sorting at source will work. Under Plan B, waste must be mechanically sorted before it is dumped into the landfill. The 2 landfill sites at Nent and Went are large enough to include these sorting machines, recycling facilities and composting plants. Government does not have sites for their proposals in the blueprint, but they have huge landfill sites of 150 to 200 hectares which they are not using efficiently. These must be used for a full range of integrated waste management activities other than just dumps for rubbish. The poor use of landfill sites results in the unnecessary need to expand them. Waste sorting and recycling plants could be operating on these sites within 3 years, and they don't require reclamation, and that is much quicker than the incinerator. 5 waste sorting lines would cost between $2 to $4 billion and reduce waste as much as the incinerator, but much cheaper. Implementation of sorting will reduce the need to expand the landfills, and maybe there's no need to expand them at all. The full Plan B of 9 sorting machines would leave about 1,200 tonnes per day of material to be landfilled or heat treated in 2 small incinerators or gasification plants, one at Went and one at Nent. The big incinerator at Chau is not needed. Waste sorting and recycling needs to be done on an industrial scale to deal with the large amount of waste generated. It is technologically easy, cheap, and sustainable use of resource, and it does create jobs. The administration's proposal is outdated and should not be supported. In paragraph 9.1 of the paper, a strategic study is proposed by the administration. We suggest that you can't commit to the incinerator until the strategic study has been completed. Thank you.
Thank you. 下一位係香港物業
Next, Hong Kong Association of Property Management Companies, Mr. Gary Young. Thank you. On the integrated waste management facilities proposed by the government, we support the proposal. We would also like to make the following suggestion so that as you proceed with the new proposal, the impact on the public will be minimized. Now, for sand, it's proposed that it will only receive construction waste upon extension. We believe that will substantially help to improve the nuisances such as odor, environmental hygiene and so on. But then the government must have effective monitoring as to make sure all the improvement measures are implemented. That second point, the government must also still do more to promote recovery at source and recovery of food waste, and also the reuse of recycled materials. In other words, government should try to reduce waste at source as far as possible. And there must be better public education. And of course, some waste cannot be recyclable, so that's why there is still a need for landfill and incineration. When waste is sorted and sent to landfills or transfer stations, there must not be pressure imposed on transportation costs, otherwise the cost will be passed on to the public. on improving the design of refuse collection vehicles that should help the environmental hygiene in residential development. So it should be done. But the government must provide sufficient subsidy to private companies. Otherwise, again, the modification cost would be passed on to the public. And when arranging transfer of refuse, the waiting time and the journey time would be longer. So it's important to make sure there is proper deployment of vehicles and when they might arrive at the landfills. And there should be more FEHD vehicles so that the frequency of refuse collection will not be affected. And there must be incineration would be an effective way to deal with waste. But then we see here only 3,000 tons of waste can be dealt with every day. That's less than a quarter of the waste generated each day. That's why in the long run we believe there is need to expand incineration facilities. Now, public may perceive incineration to be polluting, especially with emission of gas. That's why the government should adopt these most stringent standards for incineration facilities. There must be proper management. This will then address the concerns of the public, especially residents living in those islands nearby.
Commerce in Hong Kong, Mr. Ulf Orling, please.
Thank you very much for giving the opportunity to speak. Our chamber has been very active over the years in various environmental issues relating to Hong Kong. We support the government's waste reduction targets. As regards landfills, we see them as a way of just buying time. They are a nuisance and there is a shortage of land. When given this opportunity to comment on the proposals, we made some research what is happening in Sweden. And the numbers, they really surprised me. I'm not an environmental expert myself, but I know that has been waste management work going on for decades in Sweden. And as of now, only 1% of the total waste goes to landfills. 1% of the waste goes to landfills. 49% is recycled, and 49% approximately is incinerated. The incineration produces electricity and also hot water for heating our houses in the cold winters. And the emission levels from incineration, given the new technique available today, is very, very low. Actually, it has been more and more effective. We get more power, more heat from same amount of waste now with lower emissions. And as regards, someone mentioned that the ashes are transported to Norway. I don't know very much about that, but Norway is a developed country, well, at least fairly developed country. It's our neighbor, and they would not accept ashes unless they have a very good use for it. And the resistance in Hong Kong against incineration is a bit strange to me, since incineration is ongoing in almost every street corner in red buckets almost every day, creating probably at least as much emission as the incineration plants in Sweden. When it comes to new technique, we urge Hong Kong to be a bit careful when applying this policy, saying that for infrastructure projects you will only buy proven technology. And by proven, it means it has been in use for more than 10 years. I think that means the technology that can be bought would be then at least 20 years old. And in the field of incineration, there has been so much development going on recently. So I think Hong Kong should reconsider that policy, or at least use it very carefully. No airliner would hesitate to buy the latest type of airplane because it's more efficient.
Thank you, Mr. Orling. 我哋呢個會呢就去到5點10嗰幾節一樣。
We will adjourn at 5:10. So as in the previous sessions, I would invite the Secretary to make a brief response and then members can ask questions. Secretary, today, thank you very much for giving your views. I would like to make a few main points of response. First, the government is adopting a multi-pronged approach. Waste reduction at source, handling food waste, supporting the recycling industry. And when these are done to a certain degree, we then need some technology to handle construction waste and other waste. So in other words, we are adopting a 5-pronged approach. This is really necessary. We are determined to do that. Today, our focus is 3+1 proposal. Many points have been made today. The mainstream view is in support of this proposal, and people understand that there is urgent need for this. But this is just a transitional arrangement because in the past, many problems have accumulated. In the long run, how can we reduce our over-reliance on landfilling? This is our policy objective. And then about Cheung Chau. Thank you, Cheung Chau residents, for understanding the need for the waste-to-energy facility in Chau. If you look at overseas experience, when there are infrastructural opportunities, there will be hardware contribution. Just now, deputations made different requests and aspirations. We would like to address these hardware requests. But we do have a mechanism, as in other countries. We do have district liaison groups, so you can talk to members of these liaison groups on planning, management, and future health guarantee, best facilities in the design, and so on. Let's talk about heated swimming pool. I understand that overseas experience may not be applicable to Hong Kong. This I understand. So the details can be worked out with that liaison group. Number 3, you are concerned about producer responsibility scheme, and some of you talked about glass bottles. Now, this year, our government has been very active. This week, the PRS has been extended from supermarket and convenience stores to all retailers in Hong Kong. It will take place on the 1st of April. And then the waste electrical appliances scheme, we will start legislation this year. And then about glass bottles, when consultation was completed this year, we will try to start legislative work so that most of the glass bottles produced in Hong Kong will be recycled and reused locally. So please rest assured that we are determined to do that. And then about technology, some time ago, some LegCo members went with us to Europe. We also went to the Netherlands to look at the latest technology. Some wondered whether the latest technology is healthy. But actually, we have asked the UK government. They're of the view that if we build the first incinerator here in Hong Kong, what should we think about? In the past 10 years, EU had upgraded their standards. So the standard is already very good. Now our proposal is based on the EU standard as the baseline. And in the future, our goal is to exceed that benchmark. We want to achieve the health standard, and the technology must be mature. So world experts are of the view that our proposal is reasonable. We are concerned about residents living near the landfills. On the whole, there is the need in society. At the same time, we want to minimize impacts. Can we enhance communication with the local residents? Can we monitor things together? We will set up a district liaison group to understand residents' needs so as to reduce environmental impact on an operation level. We will monitor things together. We will meet the needs in society. At the same time, we will take into consideration local residents' feelings. Any questions from members? Mr. Chan KWOK, 5 minutes.
Really appreciate your time and your ideas about waste management for Hong Kong. I would like to give my time to our visitors from Holland, from Sweden, and maybe from the UK as well. Now, you just heard what the Secretary for Environment said a while ago about the relevance or applicability of EU technologies or EU policy to Hong Kong. Now, he appears to be suggesting that the EU experience, while very good, excellent, and so on and so forth, doesn't seem to really work for Hong Kong. But having read through very carefully the views provided by the Dutch Chamber of Commerce and also the Swedish Chamber of Commerce, as well as Mr. Ian Brownlee, I'm just wondering what would be your responses to the Secretary's remarks about the relevance of EU technologies and experience to Hong Kong's situation. Thank you.
Well, so I start from the Dutch Chamber of Commerce, and each representative could have 1 minute's time. I apologize for the constraint, but we have to. Mr. Schoutinger, please.
Thank you. I'll try to remain within time this time. On behalf of the Dutch Chamber, I think we would all be thrilled as residents of Hong Kong to hear that the government proposes to introduce the high EU norms and even supersede them. I mean, such aims can only be encouraged. Please do remember that it took the EU quite some time to achieve these aims. So I'm not sure how realistic it is to arrive at that stage in the short term, although you obviously have the advantage of being able to benefit from the experience and the latest technology.
Mr. Olling from the Swedish Chamber of Commerce, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to refer to our written submission. I don't have very much to add to my Dutch colleague here, and I fully concur with what has been stated from the Dutch Chamber. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ian Brownlee.
The question really is, how can we reduce the amount of waste going to landfills or to incineration? That should be the objective. And the mechanical sorting that is used all throughout the world is not even part of the program, and we cannot understand why. The only answer between now and the time the landfills are full in 2017 is not to expand the landfills. It's to be more efficient in the way we sort the MSW before it gets to be dumped in the landfill. And we could be building these large capacity machines. We don't need to rely on the community and the NGOs to do the sorting and the recycling. Everywhere in the world, it's a big business. Big companies invest a lot of money to make it efficient. And that's what we should be doing now. That should be done before you make a decision on the incinerator. There may be, as has been suggested, there may be a need for minor expansions of the landfills, but they should not be part of the solution. They are an absolute necessity because there's no option. But the landfill sorting and on-site, using the landfill sites for more purposes, as the Dutch have said, it's not just a place for dumping rubbish. And then we can come back and say, okay, do we really need these incinerators? And then they become very small because the stuff to be burnt is reduced to very, very small amounts. Thank you.
Mr. Chan Karel.
What's impressive about your submissions is that you suggest to build the waste-to-energy facilities, coming from the Dutch submission, at the existing sites, Sands, Nans, and Wendt, right? Likewise, the Swedish representative here argued against the construction of, this gigantic incinerator on Chau and tried to sort of build it somewhere else. And Ian Brownlee is suggesting that we should make a better use of the existing landfills for better arrangement, proposing a plan B. So I believe that, Chairman, with your guidance, perhaps we would later on try to organize these relatively creative, innovative ideas into our ongoing discussions, because at the moment we don't seem to have any alternative. People have been commenting, that's the only thing that the government proposes, take it or leave it, but then there are sort of newer ideas or alternative ideas coming from our European friends. I do believe that we're in a position to check them out. Thank you.
I would recommend our guests coming to the meeting today contact the member of these panels and better inform them on your creative ideas so that they could further it in our next meeting on the 28th of March. 咁就我都有啲意見要同局長講嘅。
I have some points to make to the Secretary. We can see that waste management is very backward in Hong Kong. This problem has been outstanding for a long time. What is past, and it's no use to scold anyone. The point is we should start to take action right away. But then there is a concern of confidence. Residents and green groups hope the administration to do more waste reduction and waste sorting and recycling. You should be more detailed in your arrangement so that we can rest assured. Everybody is worried that if this proposal is endorsed by LASHCO, then in terms of recycling and reuse, the administration will slow down the work. And then this substandard waste management method will continue. And then in the periphery of the waste management facilities, the Secretary said that there will be a concern group. This is not enough. It should be enhanced to a district-based management and supervision committee, and local residents should be invited to join. There should not be only a cross-departmental group to have meetings from time to time with residents. There should be a formal monitoring group. Now there are local residents against your view. I think they should be invited to work with you so that we can have a peace of mind. Next, Mr. Vincent Fang. Thank you, Chairman. I know that waste is a big problem. Your point is correct. In the past, the government did not do anything. Now we should catch up. Secretary, I hope you can separate the following issues. First, education. This is a soft issue, of course. It must be done right now. Recycling, sorting, all these must be done. Within the short run, you talked about waste collection vehicles, and they should be covered. Well, when can we have the new vehicles? Because we are talking about these short-term things. So when can we have them? Food waste accounts for 40% of our waste. Even though it's only 40%, it caused a lot of nuisance because it produces odor. When can you work on food waste? There are a lot of ways to handle food waste. For example, food waste can be converted to fertilizers or oil. Food waste can be converted into energy. Perhaps the investment will be huge, but I think that it is going to be the most useful. In the future, if there is more food waste, it can be turned into energy. Then we can accept it no matter how much there is. In the long run, incinerators must be built because waste can be reduced by 90% in volume. We are worried about any toxic emittant from incineration. We know that now technology is very advanced. Secretary, you have been to the UK. What kind of method are we going to use? Let's not waste time. Let's act immediately. So for sorting, education, vehicles being covered and so on, these should be done right away. And about food waste, can there be more information? Regarding incinerators, when will they be built? Thank you. Secretary, 5 minutes again. We are working on education. We have just started a waste reduction assistance scheme for all secondary schools. There is a mobile app helping them to understand this. And we have got a financial assistance scheme. So there will be legislation soon for food waste from now to 2020. We will do more about food waste being converted into energy. The details can be discussed later. And then about technology. Some years ago, when we discussed about Chau, we did a worldwide study, and we discussed with the Environmental Advisory Council, and then we looked at what Europe is doing, and we're of the view that the decision now is a correct and proper one. We hope to get funding approval from LegCo. We hope to start tendering as soon as possible so that we can act fast. Mr. Vincent Fang, Secretary, you said that tendering will take place as soon as possible. Now, if I ask about your hope, how soon can you envisage? Let's say if you have got the funding, then is it true that within 6 months all the waste collection vehicles will be covered? I remember that the law will come into effect after 1 year or 18 months. Dr. Chen, thank you, Chairman. We have invited owners of the private refuse vehicles to make applications. We have reminded them to come sooner. We hope that by September we will receive all the applications. There are not many garages which can work on these refuse vehicles. We hope more garages can do that. And then within 2014 or 15, we are able to install covers on all the refuse vehicles. We hope that we can finish that earlier. Thank you very much for attending this hearing. If you still have other comments, please feel free to send them to us, because on the 28th of March, we will meet again. We will further discuss the 3+1 proposal. Thank you very much. Members, please come back at 5:20.